I wrote a book. It's called The Realm of Ruin, and it's about two people, Nyla and Yevian, who get banished to a planet that has become a prison. Think Australia if it was a whole planet, and also if it was magic. And just like Australia, there are lots of crazy creatures that roam the land, except that they are also magic. So Nyla and Yevian end up joining a monster hunting guild, where they fight against the crazy monsters, make friends, and try not to get traumatized. Now, here's the first chapter. Enjoy.
Chapter 1. Nyla Youngdew shivered, her cloak doing little to protect against the cold wind. The temperature of this new planet was much colder than that of her home, one of many reminders that she would never see the place again. Of course, the unfamiliar clothing was another reminder, one that did little to protect against the elements. She and the other two prisoners were dressed in loose travel clothing, rough material that had been created with quantity in mind over quality. They'd also been given a thick cloak made of some animal skin that Nyla had never seen before. "Well, here you are," a man with broad shoulders said, a smug smile on his face. Nyla didn't know the man, but she still hated him. A man who could smile on a day like this could not be a good person. He continued to speak, not hiding the disgust in his voice as he read from a scroll. "Your punishment, as declared by the Council of the Four Realms, is exile from any and all of the holy planets. From now until your death, you and your bloodline will be confined to this realm of ruin. If you ever try to escape this prison, you'll be executed on sight." He placed the scroll back into his satchel and gave the group a lazy salute. Then, the man who had just ruined Nyla's life was gone, having traveled through a dream gate. For one without such a device, traveling between planets was impossible. Nyla was stranded. The silence of the new world persisted for only a few moments before one of the other prisoners, the younger one, began speaking. "Well, that sure was something. I expected that our banishment from society would have been a bit more eventful, I suppose. But I guess not. They must not want to remember the outcast. Yevian Bonesmith is the name. What got you two banished to the depths of ruin?" Nyla blinked, trying to make sense of the young man's words. Though he spoke the homeworld standard, his accent was stronger than she was used to, and he spoke quickly. On top of that, he was acting so casual about it all. Before Nyla could voice her thoughts, the last prisoner spoke up, an older man with portly features and dark hair that was starting to gray. "Do you realize what just happened to us? How can you treat this so casually? Our lives have been ruined. How could this happen to me?" The man broke down crying as he finished, slumping to his knees. "Oh, cheer up," the youth said, a grin on his face that seemed completely genuine. "This is just another adventure, one that no one at home will ever be able to experience." "How old even are you?" Nyla asked, skeptically looking at the youth. He was thin, with unruly hair that curled at the ends. His skin was more tan than hers, and that, along with the accent, made her confident that he was from a different planet than herself. "Hey, I'm 16, if you're going by homeworld years," he responded, obviously trying not to seem offended. "Old enough to see an adventure when it is staring you in the face. Besides, you were one to talk. You can't be much older than I am." Nyla just shrugged. In homeworld cycles, a year consisted of 360 days, completely ignoring planetary rotation. After all, when a unified people's population was divided between 4 different planets, they needed a common way of measuring years as well as a common language. In both cases, they used the homeworld as an example, a mythical place where Sega, the supposed creator of the universe, had come from. In homeworld time, Nyla was nearly 21 years old. Yevian frowned at her lack of response and glared at her silently. "If you aren't going to answer," his glance seemed to say, "then I won't talk." Well, that suited Nyla just fine. Soon the only sounds around were of the old man sobbing quietly to himself. She took a moment to look around, checking the nearby surroundings. She and her companion stood on a stone pedestal, a small construct that raised them off the ground by a few feet. Stairs led down in all directions, and the stone had no walls to keep the wind off. All in all, it seemed like the only purpose the slab served was as a landmark. Around her, the ground was flat and dry, a rocky, desolate ground that was covered with light mist, a fog that seemed to get thicker the farther away from her current location. To the south, there seemed to be a forest, looking quite out of place amidst all the barren land that surrounded it. No sounds came from nearby, something that put Nyla on edge. Nature should be loud, forming a harmony that was beautiful yet chaotic. In her normal environment, complete silence usually indicated that a predator was nearby. But perhaps she was overthinking things. Who knew if the realm of ruin even had small animals to make noise? This place was said to be a planetary dumping ground, where sorcerers of other worlds sent monsters too dangerous for them to bother fighting. It was a planet filled with the most dangerous, undesirable, and overall condemned creatures that the surrounding realms had to offer. And now, Nyla found herself a part of that group. Emotion raged inside her, but she buried it. I can't think about what I've lost. I have to keep moving. She shook her head, then turned back to her companions. The older man was still on the ground. Those tears had stopped. Yevian surveyed the ground around them, a look of boredom on his face until it suddenly changed to one of concentration. Do you hear that? He asked quietly, narrowing his eyes as he looked toward the forest. The jungle seemed to start out of nowhere, with the ground going from rocky and barren to suddenly lush with greenery and trees. It almost seemed as if a line had been drawn where the planet life had been commanded to stop, and Nyla had to squint to make sure she wasn't seeing things incorrectly. But the jungle wasn't too far, and with the extra few feet she had from the stone pedestal, there was no mistaking it. Whatever magic or curse inhabited the realm of ruin didn't leave the terrain alone. Nyla almost gave up on listening before her ears caught something coming from that direction. Narrowing her eyes, she tried to see what it was, but the jungle's foliage was impenetrable from her current vantage point. The sound continued to grow louder, and it wasn't long before a squad of soldiers came into view, cutting through vines in the forest. They made no move to hide themselves and waved upon seeing Nyla and her fellow prisoners. Yevian crouched down cautiously, but the older man, who still hadn't given his name, stood up and cheered. Ah, some sign of civilization. Over here! He jumped up and down, waving his arms, and the soldiers responded with a wave of their own. Nyla felt a stab of hesitation, but decided that she would have to trust these men, at least a bit. There were 4 soldiers, all armed with spears and side swords. Without a weapon of her own, there was no chance she could fight them, and fleeing from them would just leave her alone without supplies and on a planet where demons walked. Yevian seemed to come to the same conclusion, standing up straight and waving as well, though his nervousness showed as his eyes darted all around, as if expecting an ambush. When the soldiers came into view, one stepped forward, a man with a thick beard and a solid frame. All 4 of the men wore light armor and blue uniforms, though the most distinctive thing about their apparel was the mask they wore, painted white and blue to match their uniforms. Hello, newcomers. I am Captain Jarrett Oilsworn, soldier of the Lemstel Dukedom. We would like to personally welcome you to our humble town. Know that all your past crimes are forgiven. Here in the realm of ruin, it is a chance for you to start a new life. Please, follow us back to the city. An incoherent cheer came from Nyla's older companion, and he quickly ran down to greet them, mumbling about his good fortune. Nyla exchanged a look with Yevian. Are we really going to trust these people? She asked, glancing at them again. The soldiers wore friendly expressions, as if they didn't mind that they were condemned and exiled. Something about that put Nyla on edge. It's not like we have much of a choice, Yevian responded. Besides, it could make for an adventure. She didn't miss how his eyes still looked skeptical, glancing around on occasion as if trying to catch a creature of the shadows before it vanished from view. But as he skipped down the stone pedestal with a smile on his face, Nyla found herself matching the expression.